I've owned a ton of different C-stands and tripods and other light stands, but I always end up getting annoyed with them because I'm working in a small space. So after looking at a few options for sliding rail systems, I decided that I was going to build my own lighting system using Unistrut and Pipe. So in this video, I'm going to show you the ultimate lighting setup using Unistrut and Pipe and how I place all my lights and how I'm able to take my room to have multiple setups for shooting videos like this without having any stands on the floor except for my cameras. Also, if there's any of the pieces of gear I mentioned in this video, I do have individual review videos for pretty much every piece of gear in my studio, so be sure to check my channel out for all of those. So whenever I was researching different lighting setups, the main reason I decided to go for pipe is because you can clamp anything to pipe. I bought 1.5-inch pipe, and Amazon and B&H have a ton of options for buying different types of super clamps or other magic arms and mounts that allow you to place everything exactly where you want. Now, I do recommend also using safety cables on everything that you hang from the ceiling, just because if anything fails, then it's going to catch it and keep it from crashing on a person or on the floor. So that can be really clutch in keeping your cameras and lights safe. So to build this setup out, the first thing I knew I wanted to do is use pipe, and one of my friends recommended using Unistrut to hang the pipe. So I got a couple of strips of Unistrut and I cut it to the width of my room, and then I attached it to the ceiling by spacing it out with every other joist. So you're going to want to make sure you have a stud finder. Make sure you hit the joist every time, because if you miss, it's not going to be as strong. And you also want to make sure you line it up with the center of the joist as well, because that's going to give you the highest amount of strength. So I ended up with 3 different sections of Unistrut in my room. And the nice thing about Unistrut is there's tons of attachments you can add later on. So if you don't want to use pipes and you want to just attach Unistrut to Unistrut, you can do that if you'd like. And it's really easy to find different size pipe clamps. And you can also always add more pipes later on, but if you just attached a light directly to a ceiling and you ever wanted to move it, it would be kind of hard to reposition it. Also, I saw some people attach their pipe just using pipe elbows or threaded mounts on the ceiling, and that's just not quite as flexible as this setup, because again, once you get it in the position, you can't move it forward or back, but you can always loosen your pipe clamp and you can slide the Unistrut forward or backwards if you want. So to attach the Unistrut to the ceiling, you are going to want to attach it to the joists, and I recommend buying lag screws and washers for this. So whenever I was going to actually buy the hardware for it, I thought, oh, I'll just get some 1/2-inch lag screws and I'll use those to screw it on. Well, you can't actually fit a 1/2-inch lag screw in, because once you go to put the socket in to tighten it to your ceiling, the socket's not going to fit because the opening in the Unistrut's not big enough. So I ended up with 3/8-inch size screws, and those worked well. So do not buy 1/2-inch. Get the 3/8-inch, and I recommend buying 3/8 by about 2-inch or 2.5 inches. That way you're going to get a lot of thread through your drywall and through your joists as well. So once you get the Unistrut attached, then you need to get your pipe ready to go. So I bought 1.5-inch pipe, and I ended up spray painting it black. Technically it comes black, but there's writing on the side of it, and there's also the orange thread caps on it. I just left the caps on, spray painted it black, and gave it a nicer, cleaner appearance to it. And then you take conduit clamps. So these are clamps that are designed to go in the Unistrut, and they work just fine with this black pipe. And you want to attach them around the pipe, get them attached into the Unistrut as well, and lock everything in place really tight. Make sure you use good tools and wrenches so that all the pieces aren't going to move. And whenever you pull down on the pipes, they should have no play at all. If they have any play, that means your Unistrut's either not tight enough or your pipe clamps aren't tight enough. It was a little bit hard to get the conduit clamps on and lined up, especially because the steel pipe ended up being so heavy and holding it high in the air. But after a little bit of finagling with it, I was able to get everything attached and straightened up. Once I went to put up the pipes, I decided I wanted to put one pipe near the wall on this side and then one pipe near the angled wall on the other side. That way I had the most spread between them, and I thought if I ever wanted to, I could always put a third pipe in the middle if that was going to be more handy for me to set different rigging elements up. But so far I've found the 2 pipes to be pretty flexible with all the different magic arms and clamps and things that I've messed with. Now I do have several different Amaran lights, which another thing that's really key with a setup like this is to get lights that have a really good app, and I really like the Neewer lights. I really like the Amaran lights. They all work really great from the phone. The biggest inconvenience with the Amaran lights is the fact that the power supply brick is separate from the light, so you are going to have to hang that from your pipe as well, which is fine. It's just another thing that's going to be hanging from the ceiling. But again, this is part of why it's so nice to have everything on the ceiling, because you can have all this stuff out of the way. And now the way I've got it rigged up, I just ran an extension cord down one side of the pipe, and then I have a couple of outlet splitters so I can run my power individually to each of the different power supplies. And if I find one of my lights is pointed the wrong direction or needs to move a little to the left or the right, I just reach up or I use a stool and then I loosen up the clamp, and then I can slide the light down just a little bit. And I also love using magic arms and spigots that you're able to just loosen a little bit, re-aim, and then have it exactly where you want it. So right now with my setup up here, we've got my main shot that's this way, and then if you turn around, I have another setup with my angled shelf and my toolbox on the other side. And then over on this wall, I have my dark gray wall that's kind of my just blank setup if I want to have no distractions in the background for a talking head shot, or if I want to just get some product B-roll that doesn't have anything else in the background. So I've been using a couple different Amaran lights. I have the P60C that's lighting up the back wall behind me. I've got some of the PT4Cs that I like to use for some nice practical lights to add a little bit of color and pop into the back as well. I'm using a lot of PT1Cs on my big shelf setup. And then on the ceiling, I'm using a combo of the 60DS, the 100DS, and the 200DS, each with some different softboxes and modifiers. I find I really like the lantern the best because the lantern does the best job at spreading light everywhere. Right now I'm using the 100DS just with a softbox and a grid on it to give a nice directional light that doesn't spill onto the back wall that I have being lit with a P60C that's just hanging right above me. So I've really liked this setup. It's really easy to get a ton of great shots with it, and I'm always able to just adjust my lights slightly if I want to change things up a little bit. Or if I want to go film on that wall, all I have to do is flip my key light around and then slide it out of the way to face that way. So it's super easy. No matter what angle I want to shoot in this room, I've always got a light available that I can point at me or at any products I want to shoot shots or B-roll of. Another great thing about this setup is I actually have a top-down camera that I'll mount on this with the magic arm as well. So that's great because then if you're working on a desk like this, there's going to be no shake with it at all. So I really love using top-down rigs on that. And you can also attach a boom pole, like using one of the iFootage 32-inch magic arms, and that makes a really great boom arm that can be out of the way and always ready to go for you. The biggest problem I had with using the boom arm on the ceiling is the fact that I still have to run an XLR cable to my camera. So I tend to still run the boom arm on my camera itself, but I do really like having the top-down camera on the ceiling rig as well. So I hope this video was helpful for you to decide how you can build your own ceiling mounted lighting rig. And if you have any other questions about it, leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm also going to have a write-up in the description as well with links to some different products I recommend, both for the lighting and the hardware to set it up as well.